The Straits of Malacca and Singapore are vitally important trade routes connecting the Asian, Australian, and European continents. As a result of joint efforts by Indonesia, Malaysia, and Singapore, the three coastal countries of the Straits and Japan updated hydrographic charts based on a common datum point have been produced. And thorough research on the Straits' tides and currents has been carried out over a long period of time. The results of these joint efforts will enormously increase the navigational safety of the Straits. The Strait of Malacca is located between the Indonesian island of Sumatra and the long, narrow Malay Peninsula projecting southeast from the Asian continent. The Strait of Singapore lies between Singapore Island at the southern extremity of the Malay Peninsula and the Riau Islands of Indonesia. For centuries, these straits have been an important crossroad of trade from the four corners of the world. At present, an average of 150 ships pass through these straits daily. The shoals in the straits have plagued sea captains throughout history. Navigational routes are extremely narrow with strong currents. Until now, the only nautical charts available were mainly drawn up based on surveys done up until 1940. For example, in these charts, relative positions diverge as much as 400 meters from the two coasts. As a result, navigational safety has been jeopardized. Accidents of vessels in the straits pose serious problems to the coastal countries, since they could cause serious damage to the marine environment. Under these circumstances, the three coastal countries and Japan decided in April 1977 to jointly undertake two large-scale projects. One to draw up accurate revised charts based on a common datum point, and the other to observe the phenomena of the tides and currents in the straits for the purpose of making accurate tidal and current predictions. The participating organizations from Japan are the Maritime Safety Agency, the Japan International Cooperation Agency, and the Malacca Strait Council. Here the representatives of the four countries are signing the agreement. They are Indonesia, Malaysia, Singapore, and Japan. The reconnaissance in the straits has started.
I think it is one problem about the whole station. Now,
during this survey, the sites of the tide stations and the installation points of the current meters are determined.
we know the probability of such a phenomena about the tide station.
Survey ships from Indonesia and Singapore, carrying participants from the four countries, conduct the investigation. On board from Japan are representatives of the Hydrographic Department of the Maritime Safety Agency, as well as specialists from the other three countries. The investigation and survey will take 44 days. to full-scale observation of the tides, preliminary data will be collected from previously decided upon points. There are two major currents in the straits. One runs southeast from the Indian Ocean and into the Strait of Malacca at flood tide, and in the opposite direction at ebb tide. The other flows from the South China Sea into the Strait of Singapore at flood tide and in the opposite direction at ebb tide. Due to the geographical aspects of the straits and the semi-diurnal tides, these currents have a complex flow pattern. For safe piloting through the straits, detailed information on these tides and currents is indispensable. As a result of reconnaissance, it is decided that 12 new tide stations should be built, 6 on the Indonesian side and another 6 on the Malaysian. 5 existing stations on the Singapore side are to be partially renovated and used as well. The construction of the tide stations has begun. In the survey ship's chart room, the joint work of the 4 countries goes on night and day. Building materials and machinery are assembled in Singapore. They are then transported to the construction sites as planned. The buoys have already been installed at the various sites. The periodic movement of the ocean is classified into 2 major phenomena. One is the tide and the other is the current. The tide is the periodic movement of the ocean's surface which gradually rises and falls due to the gravitational attraction of the sun and moon. This normally occurs twice a day. When the surface of the sea reaches its highest point, it is called high water or flood tide. When it is at its lowest point, it is called low water or ebb tide. The times when the water level reaches its maximum and minimum points are called the time of high water and the time of low water, respectively. For navigational purposes, accurate prediction of these times en route is critical. The observation equipment is installed. When joint work is undertaken by people from various nations whose languages and customs are different, some difficulties are bound to crop up. In this case, however, these problems were quickly and consummately surmounted. Here, the tide stations are being built. Once the construction is over, a tide gauge is put through a trial run and preparations are made for full-scale observation. The water level is constantly changing in response to the tide's ebb and flood. For this reason, benchmarks are established onshore as datum points to indicate the water level. The position of the tide stations and the benchmarks are now accurately leveled. This benchmark is a datum point. Prior to regular observation, full-time tide watchers are posted at various tide stations which are not easily accessible for periodic tide gauge and data checks. These tide watchers rotate on 3-month shifts. The other periodic movement of the sea is the current. To observe its movement, special current meters will be installed in 6 positions along the strait's main routes. The work to install the current meters is underway. The current is the horizontal movement of the seawater. Periodically, it moves back and forth within a certain range. The current is often influenced by the shape of the coastlines and the configuration of the seabed. Depending upon topography, the speed and direction of currents vary. Due to this variation, precise forecasting is vital. For this purpose, current meters are installed. Through long-term observation of the current, detailed information can be collected. The speed and direction of the currents are recorded simultaneously on recording paper installed inside the current meter. The meters themselves are placed in pre-planned locations. In order to avoid damage caused by passing ships, the meters are equipped with 2 buoys and flashing lights. Moreover, the buoys are anchored to prevent the current meters from drifting. This is how the meters are cast into the sea. Once in 5 to 7 days,